get going. Okay, that sounds great. So I just want to let everybody know too that if there's a topic that you'd like to see in a future webinar, we'd love to hear from you. And there's going to be a feedback poll at the end of the session, so that would be great. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Cathy Burrell, and I'm an adult educator and a writer here in Kelowna. I'm an entrepreneur in residence for WeBC. My background is in fashion design, fashion manufacturing, and I had a retail store for nearly 20 years. Before we get any further, I'd like to acknowledge that today we're gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Okanagan Syilx people, and we recognize, honor, and respect the presence of Indigenous people, past, present, and future. Okay, so I invite you, everybody, to write in the chat on whose traditional territories you're on today, if that is something that you know. If you don't know, Brandy's going to just sort of post a link with a territorial map. So that would be great. And again, just a reminder, again, if you have a burning question about a webinar that you would like to see WeBC do, at the end of the feedback poll, just quickly type it into the chat with your name, and someone will get back to you if we're sort of confused about the topic of the webinar, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about what WeBC offers. We get a lot of questions. I do also work client service sometimes. We provide support for your small business journey. We offer financing to get your business started and operating capital to fuel your growth. We offer more flexibility than traditional lenders because we take a holistic approach. We don't just say, if your numbers don't add up, you can't have a loan with us. And we provide loans based on your business viability, not based on formulas. So this means we provide loans to a diverse range of women business owners and support you with integrated services, including complementary training, mentoring, and business advising. So what that means is, if you were to be successful and get a loan with WeBC, for the term of your loan, which might be 5 years, you get free training, you get free mentoring, and you get free business advising. So that's what makes us different. From essential business skills to development, to personalized business advice, we know the right questions to ask and the right resources to connect you with. In our mentoring programs, you can connect with a network of women entrepreneurs and experts all around BC who can support and inspire you. You can learn more about our services by typing in our website, which is we-bc.ca, and a / for mentoring services, anything like that. Okay, I'd like to welcome, the last thing I want to say too about our e-blast. Most of you that are on this session today, I'm sure have signed in for our e-blast. Again, if you go to our website and sign up, you will get one email from us every month that will talk about what we offer, like these great webinars or this WeCafe today. So I'd like to welcome our panelists today. Today we're going to be talking about government procurement, and the Government of Canada is one of the largest buyers of goods and services in Canada. The list of what they buy is long, and the needs might surprise you. Plus, contract values range from the hundreds of dollars to the billions of dollars. So even if you have a small business, they may be looking to buy what you're selling. And it's amazing on these these WeCafes how many people say, I never realized, and then they end up with a government contract. So today we're hosting Stephanie Waters, who's the project manager at Procurement Assistance Canada. We're hosting Barry Payne, which is an Indigenous procurement specialist with PAC, and David Kim, who is the regional manager and client diversity at BDC. And again, BDC is a good partner to WeBC. And we want to answer your questions. We want them and your questions about government procurements. Welcome, Stephanie, Barry, and David. And I'm going to stop screen sharing right now and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie.
As Cathy said, my name is Stephanie Waters. I am a project officer with Procurement Assistance Canada. Our office specifically functions in the way of outreach and engagement, as well as assistance and awareness of government procurement. So we do events like this to let people know that it's an option, and then we also help them along the journey and navigating that process. So in a nutshell, that is Procurement Assistance Canada. You will learn a lot more as we go through this morning. We are joined by David from BDC, so he has a lot of expertise on that end as well. We welcome all questions. We have a couple topics that we'll go through, but at any point we would love to answer your questions instead. So if you want to turn your video on, turn your mic on, jump in, or you can post it in the chat or message me directly, and we can get those questions answered for you. We'll try to keep the answers as succinct as possible. We want to get through as many as we can. So if you would like more clarification or more help on a certain topic, feel free to reach out. We are happy to schedule a follow-up meeting where we can just talk about that one-on-one with you, but we will try to get through as many as we can in this hour. So I will pass it off to Barry from Procurement Assistance Canada for a brief introduction before we and then David, and then we'll get started with our questions. Go ahead, Barry.
All right, thank you, Steph. Thank you everyone for inviting me to this event today. I love getting involved in these events and sharing my experience and knowledge. I'm fairly new to Procurement Assistance Canada. I came about a little over a year ago now. I had sold my last business in 2021 and was briefly retired and decided I'll never do that again. And like most of you, I was a supplier for over 20 years, mostly to the Canadian federal government. Starting out right here from my home almost 25 years ago, in the basement actually. I bid on a standing offer and was awarded a standing offer with the federal government for building offices in the capital region, and literally drove back and forth for a couple of years, just working out of the trunk of my car, and over the years built it to be the third largest supplier to the Canadian federal government. So I know it's like to sort of start from the bottom and work my way up. And then as I was doing that during the period of time, one of the mandates for my own personal mandate was to include Indigenous people as much as possible in my projects. And as we grew across Canada and actually around the world, I would constantly try to engage Indigenous people and bring them into the organization. And eventually that spurned off, and it got going so much it spurned off into a staffing company, which actually I sold in, as I said, 2021, and it's still going today. So my passion now is actually to show tips and tricks and things I learned over the years navigating the hallways of Ottawa and procurement right across the country. I was primarily in what I call office furniture and staffing, but I'd won contracts in bottled water, medical devices, all kinds of things. So I really encourage folks to go outside their wheelhouse sometimes. And probably, I'm going to say, probably did over $250 million in my lifetime, various types of contracts. So, and I like to think of myself as people that they can identify with. They can see I'm no professional speaker. I just mainly dedication, hard work, and perseverance, really, what I was doing, and the passion to make it successful. And I like helping folks today with it. So I do a lot of one-on-one coaching and things like which we can chat about. Well,
all right, thank you, Barry.
So I forgot, and I'm remiss. I'm working for the Hiawatha First Nation, who I'm a proud member of, and I have for the last 25 years worked from here. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I will pass it back to Steph.
Thank you so much. And yeah, over to you, David, for a brief introduction.
Thanks, Stephanie, and hello, everybody. I too would like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the unceded territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, Squamish, Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nations here in Vancouver, BC. I'll keep it very short in introductions because I know we're going to cover quite a bit about how BDC can help the audience here along with procurement. For me, I'm part of a national team called the Client Diversity Team. And our role is basically to connect diverse entrepreneurs like the people in the audience here with organizations such as WeBC, Procurement, PAC, organizations in the ecosystem, as well as with our account managers. And that's in brief what I do.
Alrighty, thank you so much. We will jump into our first question, which is for Barry. And that is, what are some key considerations or requirements that businesses should be aware of when participating in the federal procurement process?
Well, actually, that was kind of a unique question. Believe it or not, it's the first time that somebody's ever asked me that this year and a half. So I had to really sit down and think about it. So you see me looking to the left. I had to sit down and kind of get my thoughts around it. So the number one barrier, I believe, most of the time, is ourself. That's it. And I think once we get over that barrier of can I do it, or should I do it? I used to ask myself a question. Things like, can I do the project? Is it in my space? Is it something that kind of fits what I do? Because one thing I learned along the way is you're only as good as your last project, especially in the federal government, and so you really have to consider is the fit for you. But also something else I would look at was my competitors. I look at whenever I look at any opportunity, I would actually look at who the competitors were in that space as well, because sometimes I would just pass on it because in some of the scenarios you might see very large corporations. I don't want to name any consulting companies, but a lot of them have been known to actually go in at zero profit just to get into a department. Well, we as entrepreneurs and sole proprietorships in many cases, we can't afford to do that. So sometimes it may be just better off to pass. And you got to look at things of, depending on the scope and the size of the project, can you wait to, sometimes it's a lot better these days getting paid by the federal government, but in some cases it was 3-4 months, depending on the size of the project. Whether the security clearances are required. And today there's tools and resources we can help you get those security clearances. And in some cases, corporate experiences, things like we call professional services, which is kind of like the HR side. You need to have a certain corporate experience to bid on certain projects or certain levels. Sometimes they can become a barrier. So, but all of them, again, like I don't really call them barriers, probably more like little small fences, because they can all be jumped over with a little help and access to resources. So, so that would be my kind of what I would kind of identify as barriers. But again, they're not barriers that are unmovable, any of them. So,
thank you so much. Next, we will go over to David. Which is, what role does Business Development Canada play in helping businesses access funding and financing options that may not be readily available through traditional channels?
That's a great question, Stephanie. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada, we're set up to deal with just entrepreneurs. So we don't provide credit cards, lines of credit, or term deposits, or we don't ask, would you like a safe deposit box with that? We deal strictly with businesses, and the way that we support them is through financing and advisory. And as we go throughout today, you'll be able to hear some stories of exactly how we can do that. And then if you got specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them offline. The other thing that we do is that we are a complementary lender. And what that means is that we work with other financial institutions, including our good friends over at WeBC. And that part of complementary, I think it's very important for the audience to take note, because when you are getting yourself ready to apply for a contract or taking on new customers, it's really important to see what other organizations are out there that could help you, either together with other organizations or separately or at different times. In terms of specifics that we do, it's slightly different than the commercial banks. We do have specific products, loan products in the tech sector. We have a purchase order financing product that would complement very nicely if you were to get a contract. For our Indigenous entrepreneurs, we have a dedicated Indigenous entrepreneur loan, as well as with the Black entrepreneurs, where we have been partnering up with other organizations like FACE and Futurepreneur to be able to provide funding. There is another product that may be of interest, and that is our newcomer loan, up to $50,000 for newcomers to Canada who are interested in getting into entrepreneurship, but they face either very little or no credit history. In terms of on the women entrepreneur side, although we don't have specific a loan product for women entrepreneurs, what we do is that we are able to provide resources in the sense on the venture capital side. We have dedicated venture funds for women entrepreneurs. We have a dedicated tech team that can provide financing. And of course, on our advisory side, which works really well hand in hand with the great business advisors over at WeBC.
Thank you so much. That's very useful information. Next, we will go to Barry again. So this one's more specific to barriers, less so than general things you'll have to navigate. But this is, in your experience, what are some common challenges that suppliers may face when seeking federal procurement opportunities? What are some strategies to navigating those?
Page on me. Some of the strategies I would look at is when you think of the Canadian federal government. This applies to most of the folks on this call. The majority of procurement is actually, everybody thinks that it's all big dollars, and I think Cathy touched on it earlier. Majority of procurement, 75% in fact, are under $1 million, and the majority of the procurements under $1 million are actually under $25,000. And when you look at the way that the federal government procures products and services, especially under 25,000, those are what we call low dollar value, and anything under 25,000 for goods or 40,000 for services can be procured locally. And what I mean by that is you actually develop relationships with local people from the federal government, procurement people, contracting people, and that's where I like to preface. That's the area that I always focus on folks to actually look at, because people buy from people, so we don't get away from that. You develop relationships with some of our resources that we do one-on-one coaching. That's one of the things we talk about, is how to develop those relationships and how to navigate opportunities to overcome. So you don't really have to go after the big ones. A good example I learned recently, when I first came on board, I was approached by a lot of people doing catering, and I'm like, wow, catering, that's a tough one. But then I realized after some thought that almost every director or every manager, somebody within a department, including our own, there's an assistant who actually looks after, every time there's a staff meeting or something like that, looks after the catering. And so those folks aren't hard to find. We have something called the Government Electronic Directory Service, or GEDS as we like to call it, which is essentially the government phone book. And one of the things we'll do, and we'll provide it tomorrow or in the follow-up, is how you can go in there. You can literally find anybody in the Canadian federal government. You can use keywords like procurement or contracting. Those are good people to start with, and anybody with that in the title will pop up. Some of the other things that we're looking at is looking at specific types of procurements. Like social procurement's a big initiative now within the federal government and in corporate Canada, where it's women-owned, Black-owned, and all that. And my title, actually, I should have it changed a little bit, because when I started out, it was Indigenous, but over that last year, it's really branched out into helping all equity deserving groups. And so I've actually put a synopsis together that we'll share later on opportunities. But the easiest way and the most positive way, I try to talk people, and don't think RFPs right off the bat. You don't need to go RFPs. My goal is to get you on a supply arrangement or a standing offer. And then when you get on, it's kind of like a business license. And then you actually start to market yourself through relationships. And that's the easiest way to do it. And it's not difficult. And in most cases, I used to say when I was doing furniture, just buy a chair from me, and that's how we'll start building it small. So very similar to folks in this room. So one thing that I can say is, in the last 25 years, are the tools and resources that are available to you. there's folks like Stephanie. We have an entire department in Vancouver that represents almost every type of equity deserving group we can think of. And it's our role to help you navigate any challenges. Even when you get to the RFP process, there's ways to help for that as well. So there's lots of tools and resources available to you to help you navigate any challenges you have.
Thank you so much. This one might be quick, but David, does BDC offer other services other than financing?
Yes, I saw that in the chat box. I thank you, Monica, for asking that question. And apologies if I didn't make that clear. Other than financing, yes, we do, and that is on our advisory side. When I joined BDC over 15 years ago, that was what attracted me to BDC, was the advisory piece. And when I looked at organizations like WeBC, their advisory piece, that told me that is the most important part, because money, financing wise, if you look hard enough, you will find the money. It might be a bit more expensive, but you will find the money. It's that advice piece attached to the money, enabling you to maximize the use of that and maximize your return. So the advisory side is a very important component to BDC. And the other is this connection part. I mentioned to you that I'm part of a national client diversity team where we try to connect diverse entrepreneurs, women, Indigenous, Black, and all the other underrepresented communities with various organizations in the ecosystem, along with our account managers. And so in terms of specific initiatives that I want to point out here that might be relevant to the audience regarding procurement is one of the ways that we're going to be talking about later is making yourself efficient, your business efficient. And one way is through technology. And if you have not heard of the government program called Canada Digital Adoption Program, CDAP, it was introduced by the government because we need to get our small and medium-sized enterprises, we need to lift them up in terms of being competitive, not just domestically, but across the world. And so this program is designed in the form of a grant to business owners, up to $15,000 to develop a digital adoption plan. And for companies with revenues over $500,000, they would qualify for a 0% interest loan administered through BDC. And if your revenue is less than that, there is another stream of CDAP program that will enable you to get a grant of up to $2,400 to help you with e-commerce and online sales. The other initiative, and I'll end on that, Stephanie, is our own supplier diversity program. Barry referred to the equity section that he mentioned at the beginning. The supply diversity program, if you're not familiar with that, it's really an access, access to make a fair market access for diverse entrepreneurs, to level the playing field for suppliers like yourselves that are on the call here, to be able to gain contracts into governments as well as large corporations, where these programs, where companies have mandated themselves to purchase a certain percentage of their yearly procurement from diverse entrepreneurs like the audience that are here. And so BDC has its own, and shortly I'll put a link in there where you can go into our supplier page and register. Barry mentioned beforehand that getting registered is important, and it would be the same with any other large corporations who has a supplier diversity program.
Thank you so much, David. We will stay with questions from the chat, which is what we love to see. I think Barry already touched on pursuing low dollar value projects, but there are two follow-ups. One is in cases where opportunities are not listed or available, how can I stay informed and become aware of potential projects? And are there any specific challenges or resources you would recommend exploring? And websites or platforms which will provide information or listings of low dollar value government projects.
Would you like me to answer that?
I would love it if you would.
First of all, when you do low dollar value, they're ongoing. So it's not something that, you look forward to something coming out in the future. Or it's something, under 25,000, they don't have to post it. So if it's goods and under 40,000, they wouldn't have to post it. So that's something you'd have to, you do on an ongoing basis, your outreach. And what I really like talking to encouraging people like that, because if you get in, it's a good way to get a trial and things like that, and kind of the ongoing. Like I've had instances where clients who are client departments, they can buy from you as many times as they want, as long as they're below that threshold. And so again, it's an ongoing process. Now, something I always I preface when I talk to people about marketing to the federal government, it's a very what I call data intensive kind of endeavor, and I highly recommending using some CRM software, because you need to follow up and track who you're talking to, what department you're talking to. And in my one-on-ones, I actually cover off a little bit about this, because one of the things I noticed over the years was there was an actual, it took me about 10 years before I realized there's an actual formula. There was actually something coming out of it, a number of touches and things like that, before I actually got involved in it. And I also want to record the relationships I have with these folks, and because you want to become personal under the 25,000 to 40,000. Once it's over that, typically they have to go to tender. And again, tender, you can be looking at, you can either be proactive or reactive. And I used to like to be proactive. So one of the tools I use, and we'll put it in tomorrow's package, is something called disclosures over $10,000. And essentially it's a site where you can use your keywords, and it lists everything the Canadian federal government has purchased since 2006 over $10,000. So the nice thing about that is it gives you some background when you look at it, who the department was and things like that. So you can be proactive by going into the past and looking at what we bought, and then going to that department and start promoting yourself for future opportunities. You need to be listing the SRIs and all that sort of stuff. But never really, 25 years, I never picked up the phone and said, I heard somebody the other end go, I got your name off of a list. It was always proactive, and I can't stress that enough. So the low dollar value is the way to go, because it's much easier to tackle. It's not as competitive, but I like to see who is in that space anyhow. But there's a whole kind of, I call it like a formula that I just kind of used, and I kind of realized over the years, and it's just outreach, proactive outreach. I hope that can answer in a long-winded way.
Absolutely, yes, thank you. The next one, we will go back to David, and that is, how could BDC aid in the success of a small or medium-sized business that was interested in becoming a supplier to the Canadian government?
Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie. And let me just, before I really delve deep into that, I want to just reiterate what Barry has been saying, the information he's been sharing about the low dollar value, the one-on-one coaching by PAC advisors like Barry, and getting on a standing offer. We have many clients at BDC who are suppliers to the federal government. And we've worked very closely with PAC, where we have our clients, we introduced them to advisors like PAC, and I've got some stories that I'd love to share later on, where the great advice from PAC advisors helps the interested entrepreneur really navigate through the labyrinth of layers and great information that's out there. But one of the things that you want to be aware of as you're looking to getting a contract with the government or with any large corporation is, what is your operation like now? Because it's the same thing of asking yourself, if I'm going to get the federal government as a customer, it's like, okay, if I get another customer, like let's say a large customer like Costco, how is that going to impact my operation now? Am I going to be able to service my existing customers while trying to take on a federal government or a large corporation? So it's that planning stage that's very important in order to really set yourself up for success. And that could be done with conversations with BDC and of course with WeBC advisors. And then the other is looking at your cash flow. Make sure that you've forecasting enough for your cash flow, because we do know that whenever you get a new customer, whether it be the federal government or someone else, you're going to run out of cash.
Absolutely. Barry, would you touch a little bit on pro services? We have a question from Sharon. I've started a new event consulting business and still run my 35-year-old event company. Would love to offer my consulting services to the government to plan events. Where do I find service-based offerings?
Well, the first thing I do here is go to that page that we talked about, over $10,000 disclosures, and I would use the keyword event planning. And first thing you'll see if there's a hit, and I know there's hits on this because there is the event planning supply arrangements, and look what they bought in the past and who's bought them in the past. Leading to that, there is a supply arrangement for event planning. And there's something we call the SOSA, and it's an Excel spreadsheet that we'll also share the link in later. This was part of our one-on-one coaching that I take people. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and you can also do keyword searching there. And what's really cool about it is there you'll see it's the current list of all supply arrangements and standing offers the Canadian federal government has. So if you were using the word the keywords event planning, you're going to see all the present standing offer holders on it. But more importantly, it shows you the actual standing offer numbers, which is very important because that's what you want to get on. And you can reach out to us and we'll help you navigate that process of getting on a supply arrangement or a standing offer, that if it's appropriate. And one of the things I like to preface about a supply arrangement and standing offer is it's not an RFP, it's not winner take all. It's basically a pre-qualified list, much like you have, I think in BC, you probably have the $40 to buy your business vendor license. Same idea, it's to get you in the game. That's all it is, and then you start. Typically, depending on the type of service or commodity, they like to do a refresh every quarter. And most pro services, professional services, it's typically every quarter that they're adding new names and new faces to that list. So my goal is exactly what you just talked about, is to get you on that list, and then we start from there. So I hope that answers your question. I definitely know that we do buy event planning because I've had a few people talk to me about it. So it's something we can certainly help you with.
Yes, thank you so much. Where do we find relevant information? That is on Canada Buys, is the authoritative source for all requirements that the government has. I will post a link to that in the chat as well. For anybody, I've been answering a couple in the chat as we go. So for one, has been, do you have an example of what a proper bid should look like? No, but there is a resource that's called How to Prepare a Bid. So that one's in the chat. Bids, they all look different. Some are 10 pages, some are 50. There's just so much diversity on what the requirement is. We can't have a standard template. And Procurement Assistance Canada isn't at liberty to help with specific bids. We go from the point of letting you know that it's an option until you are a bid ready company. As soon as it gets specific like that, we have to step away to maintain the open, fair, and transparent mandate. We don't want to be providing information to one company that another one doesn't have access to. So while Barry, I'm sure, is an absolute professional at preparing bids, he is not allowed to help you, unfortunately. So that is in the chat. Canada Buys, I will post in there. We will also be posting a link to that over $10,000 disclosures. Is the list Barry referring to can be found at the link above. I believe that's also the proactive disclosures. We will be providing that. Hard to keep up. I know it is. I'm trying to keep things in the chat so there is a record of it happening. So back to our panelists. Sorry, I just want to make sure everyone was caught up. If you weren't reading the chat, if you were busy listening, I didn't want you to miss out on any information. So
Stephanie, I don't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to let people know that are on the call today Would your contact information be available, like for anyone to reach out after, or anything like that? That might relieve some of the panic that it's like, we have to talk to you right in this hour and then we never see you again.
Absolutely not. No, we will make sure. We will make sure that we are easy to reach. We will post our information in the chat as well as in that follow-up email tomorrow. All of our information will be provided there as well. So
Wonderful.
we are happy. If we didn't answer any questions, we are happy to have those meetings one-on-one, or if we kind of brushed over something that you would really like more information on, we can do that as well. So no, there's no stress. We are not going to run away in 22 minutes, never to be seen again.
Yeah, so everybody just take a breath. You're good. Yeah, there will be a way to reach these 3 individuals. So yeah, and sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, thank you so much. That is a good reminder. No panic. Alrighty. What is the process for getting pre-qualified as a consultant for government projects in Canada? Are there specific requirements or qualifications that need to be met? I think that's you, Barry.
Depending on the actual product or service. Again, you know, these aren't difficult to get on because it's essentially a pre-qualified list. And in most cases, there might be something like corporate experience required that you may not have. And that's where I talk to people a lot about collaborating with other people. And that's a great thing. You have such a diverse group here. Because one of the ways you can help each other is by collaborating. One person may have one portion of the ability and the other person may have the corporate history in terms of dollars. And by collaborating together, you can get on a supply arrangement or a standing offer if it has those types of what I call barriers or hurdles. The majority of the actual supply arrangements are pretty easy to get on. I think the one mandatory is pretty much you have to be a year for one business, 1 year business, I think. But again, it depends. I'm sure you hear that all the time, but it depends on whatever the product or service is. And again, this is where we help again on the one-on-one coaching to help you navigate that. You know, the stress. I love hearing that because one of the things I love doing is I try to call de-stressing everybody because it isn't stressful. You know, once you kind of get the basics down and on how to do it. Our role and our responsibility is to help you navigate and get on a supply arrangement. So, and use our experience in doing it. So depending on whatever the service is, you know, if it's like molecular biology or something, yeah, that might be a little tougher to get on, but typically staffing or HR, things like are a little easier to get on. So hope that can answer the question. And by the way, before I forget, I also put in the SOSA that I was talking about earlier, and I believe Cathy, you're going to send out a package tomorrow, and I'll instead of just giving you these hyperlinks, I'll actually give you some instructions on how to navigate those hyperlinks in that package, so that you can play with them. There's like I call it 3 particular hyperlinks that are required: the GEDS, Government Electronic Directory, and I'll explain in that package how to navigate that, make it a little easier. Back to you, Stephanie.
Great. Thanks, Barry. And Stephanie, Stephanie, do you see that there's another Stephanie with her hand up?
Oh, I do not.
Are you
Go
okay
ahead.
if she?
Yes,
yeah. Stephanie,
please.
you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just curious. One, do you need a business license or a business to sell to the government, or can you just be a sole proprietorship?
You need an HST or a BIN number, they call it, business identification number.
And where do you get that from?
Boy, I'm not a CRA person.
That'll be CRA. That won't be through us. It'll be a CRA tax.
You have to acquire that number before you can sell anything to them?
Well,
no,
one of the things sorry, Steph.
But you need the number to get paid. So you should. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they need to assign, in order to cut a check, the system has to have a business identification number for you in order for them to process the payment. And the BIN number is very similar to your HST number. They just add a few zeros, and that's all done through CRA. You can register your company on, they'll give you the HST number. And they'll even talk about the BIN number, I believe. It's been a while. But again, you can send one of us an email and we'll help you navigate that as well.
And then my other question is, say my business is clothing, but I'm looking at all the different opportunities, and I see they need 18 photocopiers or some sort of vehicle, and I have connections within that realm. Do I have to stay with what my company is, or can I branch out to whatever they're looking for? Doesn't matter what my company is.
As I mentioned when I first got on, I've sold everything, bottled water to medical devices, x-ray machines. And my primary business was building offices for the federal government, technically deal with the cubicles everybody sits in. Back, what I used to do, you'll see a spec and it would give you powers, like if it's a medical device, there's a spec in there. I would actually take that spec and then just pop it into Google, and Google would tell me what the product was. And then I would actually reach out to the manufacturer and go, hey, there's this opportunity. There's things like that. So, and I come from the photocopier industry as well. And there are standing offers and supply arrangements, but they're with the manufacturers at that level. But to make a long story short, is you can sell anything to them. Okay, that if you have a connection with them, and we can have a chat about that offline. I used to call myself Mr. Haney, but that's really aging myself. Most of you probably never even heard of Mr. Haney. So, like literally everything back in the day, because a lot of times you'll see stuff posted on Canada Buys, and there's a reason why the procurement people are putting it there. Some cases they have absolutely no idea where to find it. Mm-hmm. And so they'll post it for that simple reason. I don't think it happens as much now as it used to with technology, but yeah, there used to be a reason why it would be a much easier task for them to post it than it was to go looking or researching, right? And typically the government kind of philosophy is best value to the crown. So that takes into consideration price. And so the path of least resistance in a lot of ways, if they want a product, is just post it and let people respond.
And then my last question, like the cubicles, because I have noticed some of them are like, yeah, we're looking for 36 desks and chairs, but also you need to set it up where it is. So you would basically bid, hey, these 36 desks are going to cost $10,000 and then $5,000 for setup. And then you are the one that has to coordinate bodies to do the setup as well. Right.
You basically like a project manager from start to finish, right? You're actually taking it, and that's what I touched upon. If that's not in your wheelhouse or your space to begin with, and it's something new to you, if you don't come out and you're only as good as your last project. If you mess up, chances are we're not supposed to hold anything against you, right? But people will kind of think, oh boy, you know what? I went with that person last time and we had nothing but headaches. So that's why it's important to make sure that you bite off more than you can chew, I guess, or go after something that, because it's your name, it's your face, you are the project. Mm-hmm. And that's something you got to be cognizant of.
Hey, Stephanie Waters, it's David here. Can I add on to what Barry was saying to help address what the great questions that Stephanie in the audience was questioning, and perhaps will help the others. It sounds to Stephanie and others, if you've got the ability to be able to pivot and bring in other goods or services to beyond what you originally set out for, that's fantastic. I do encourage you, though, to have a look at your strategic plan. What is your business model all about? Are you a wholesaler of various products? And that's where the business planning comes into place. That's where having conversations with WeBC, with BDC, with Small Business BC as well, other organizations. Because to Barry's point, if you're not able to, if you get the contract and you're not able to deliver on it, it does create some issues. And we, working with PAC very closely and with our clients who are supplying to the government, we know that that capacity, the ability to take on more, is a critical factor, and that's why that planning stage at the very beginning is so important. And then, of course, that cash flow, that working capital. You need to make sure you've got plenty of that before taking on a larger contract. Even a low dollar value one. We have a lot of clients that are on the standing offer agreement, and they are having conversations with their account managers here at BDC about, okay, what happens if the government says, hey, you're on the standing offer here, we need your services. Then that means that that supplier has to be able to act. And it takes, again, cash to be able to act. So I hope that's helpful for you, Stephanie, in the audience, and everybody else.
Can I add, sorry, I was going to ask, can I add one more thing for Stephanie? Stephanie, you heard me talk about the Socialist, the Excel spreadsheet. If you go to that, that's every current standing offer or supply arrangement in the Canadian federal government. And I recommend that people start at the top and scroll down. And the reason for that, you can look for products on there that companies, like they could be a large corporation, might actually have a standing offer. You can actually reach out to them and say, hey, you know what, would you mind if I became like a dealer for you or something? Because they're on there, it means the government's buying it. Like every corporation, they're always looking for incremental sales, right? I used to use that list to reach out for potential partners all the time. So that might be, you know, and you and I can.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I deal with procurement for the film industry. I'm a buyer. So I'm used to things that I have to source that are not normal. And it ranges from all sorts of things. And so I wouldn't want to specialize necessarily in one area because my expertise is sourcing really hard things to source. But yeah, you answered my question by saying that, yes, I can sell them anything that they're asking for.
And I'm going to tell you, your knowledge of having the knowledge of sourcing, we should almost have a standing offer for that.
Yeah.
Because we could, you know, that's the biggest thing everybody has is where do I find it, right? So
that's why I think I would be really good at this, because I've been basically sourcing for 10 years now for the film industry, and I'm like, well, there's a writer's strike right now, so I was trying to figure out other avenues of income.
And I just wanted to add my pitch too with regards to having a business plan. At WeBC, we do a weekly session called Starting a Business Information Session. I'll have Brandy post the link. And basically it's the 10 steps to create an effective business plan. Don't go into this, I would not, my 2 cents, without at least having 5 pages of something on paper, because it can get really real really fast. And that little bit of planning at the beginning makes a huge difference. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much. This one came in, it's already been answered through the chat, but from Kim for David, I'm a woman-owned business and I'm looking at upgrading my office space and thinking about buying an office in downtown Vancouver. Need some creative funding. Is this something BDC can help with? And the answer was yes, absolutely. So there's very clearly a wide range of services and ways that BDC is able to help beyond standard business funding, which is awesome. And that's why we love to work so closely with them. How long does it take for an RFP to close? It really depends. Some are open for the minimum 15 days. Some are open for 2 years. There's no standards. Really, it'll tell you on each tender when it opens and when it closes. They need at least one bid to be able to close. So sometimes they just keep getting extended if nobody's bidding, but there's really no standard. Minimum 15 days they have to be open for. Small Business BC is a great place to get information. I would agree. SBBC is great. They have a lot of really good services, and their website will have some good information as well. All right, I think we have a couple
Stephanie,
minutes
I was
left.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, no, yeah, we've got about probably 6 minutes left. We've got a little bit to do at the end, but if there's a burning question, we can answer it now. But as I mentioned before, you'll have all these great panelists information going forward. So if there's questions, and people like Barry who are very willing to have a conversation and answer your questions. So yeah, okay. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So just to confirm, the chat will also be accessible as well as the recording.
I believe so.
Perfect. Okay. So
Yes,
I just
we've got 94 comments in the chat, so let's hope we can see it all.
Yes,
I'm
let's get
interrupt
that sent out as well. So
sorry,
I just want to
Cathy.
send it to David. He mentioned that he had a success story, so I'm hoping it is a quick one, but I just wanted to give you the
I'll
chance
make
to
it quick.
share that
I'll make it
before we
quick.
start wrapping up.
Yeah, I'll make it very, very quick. It highlights the collaboration between BDC and PAC and the impact to entrepreneurs that want to get into the supply chain. So we have a women entrepreneur client of ours who attended one of these webinars, and we introduced her to a PAC advisor like Barry. In that session, one-on-one session, a lot of great things came up for that entrepreneur. And one was the notion that Barry mentioned earlier, and that is, being a supplier to the government is one revenue opportunity, but also you have the opportunity to be a supplier to a supplier of the government. And so that's another revenue source for you, which our client was discovering. The other part was that when the advisor took our client through one of the contracts that's relevant to what that entrepreneur was providing, the entrepreneur realized that there was some technical innovation part here that the contract was requiring, and it was an inspiration for innovation for our clients, saying, we can do that technology and we can put that technology in our future products. So that's that inspiration for innovation. And then of course, being introduced to other networks, the whole opening the doors. And then from that conversation, our client realized the need for working capital, and we were able to do that for the client. And then Update has now secured a contract with a big box retailer and is waiting for that next contract from the federal government that the PAC advisor had already identified. So the combination of PAC advisory and your other resources like BDC and WeBC can really work well to set you up for success.
That's great. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to start sharing my screen again. There it is.
I do, sorry, just as you do that, because we are sharing the chat as well, in the last couple minutes, if anybody wants to share their email as a bit of a networking opportunity, if you want to connect with others that were here today, go ahead, you can put your name, location, business, email, whatever you'd like to provide. That can go in the chat because it will get shared with everybody. So I've already seen a couple people that have posted and emailing each other and like that, which is awesome. So go ahead and do that now as Cathy wraps up for us.
Okay. Yeah, no, great idea. I mean, we think we're all used to these virtual webinars, but yeah, it's always a good reminder. By the way, no one's going to remember you unless you put your contact information in. I'd just like to thank our panelists today. I think this was a fabulous discussion. And again, the questions from the audience, there are no questions that aren't valid, and we had some great ones today, and I've been facilitating this for a couple of years now, so it was nice to see so many people kind of ready with what they need. So thank you very much today to our panelists, Stephanie, Barry, and David. And as you can get a hold of us at WeBC, once you get that email from us, if you've got questions, go ahead and send us an email, or you can contact everybody sort of directly. The last thing I just want to cover is that we've got a couple of more sessions in this PAC session. Small business bidding, tour the website. That's a really interesting one, and I hope everyone can make it for that. And August 10th is bidding best practices, strong strategies for small businesses. And again, you know, a small business is a very relative term. You could have $10,000 in sales, you could have $1 million in sales. So that's great. And there's the registration down there, and you will get an email from us on that. Next, yeah, I mentioned our business planning. September 14th, you know, we're doing an extra session called Building Your Business Plan, Formalize Your Needs series. That's with one of our business advisors, but every week we do our SBIS series, which is fantastic. And lastly, I just want to make sure that I thank everybody for joining us. Brandy is going to do a little feedback poll for us. That's what I reminded you about at the beginning. We love your feedback, just to know that, again, the sessions are helpful to you as a woman business owner. And again, if you have any ideas of another session that, you know, you think would be fabulous to offer other business women here in BC, we'd love to hear it. So just stick it in the little comments section, or send us an email, you know, call us, anything like that. You see our contact information down below. You can reach us a variety of ways. Check out our socials, see stories of successful business women all around BC. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. The feedback poll will be up for another minute or so. And I want to say goodbye to everybody and thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy your day, enjoy this beautiful summer. And I hope wherever you are, it's good and sunny, not good and smoky. So thank you very much, everybody. And see you all. Thanks again for participating. Okay, enjoy your day. Bye.